Good evening, welcome from the London Buddhist Centre. It's Tuesday evening, so it has to be the Tuesday evening class. I just got counted down to being live, which is quite an interesting experience, I can assure you. So yeah, we've got a few minutes before the class starts proper. My name's Mahamani and I'm going to be hosting this evening. And yeah, got a bit of a bonus session coming up this evening, but I'll say more about that at 7 o'clock when I start proper. But for now, I think it's always nice for people to know who else is in the room. There aren't that many of us in the room, but it's also my opportunity to give a shout out really, and a particularly warm, appreciative thanks to the tech people. And I was saying a couple of weeks ago that talking about the tech team is quite new words for me, new language. It's not something that I kind of feel very familiar with, but it's fast becoming familiar. So we've got Jarrett and Fajiro, who have been our Tuesday night tech team, and they're really wonderful. They're really wonderful. They're kind of very relaxed and calm, and they know exactly what to do and where to put us and so forth. Fajiro's pointing at Jarrett and saying, he does. So I'm going to really embarrass them now, because one of them was saying they don't like coming in front of the camera. The other was saying that they do like coming in front of the camera. So you can just guess. You can guess who it is. So I'm going to ask Fajiro, first of all, to come and just say hello. See, that I was about to say, that wasn't so painful. And Jarrett, do you want to come and say hello as well?
Hello.
Yeah, so thank you. And it's not just me this evening, I'm just going to be hosting and leading a little bit of meditation before Sthiramanas comes to talk to us this evening. So Sthiramanas, do you want to come and say hello as well?
Hello, I'll see you in a minute.
And yeah, we just got a couple of minutes, so if people are coming into the room, maybe just put in the chat, say hello and where you're from. It's always nice to know where people are tuning in from.
Yeah, we've got 10 people who are viewing. We've got Stefan, who's just said hello from Dundalk Island.
Dundalk Island?
Yeah.
Yeah?
And then we also have Mercia saying good evening from Suffolk.
Hello from Suffolk?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
No more hellos, but we definitely have 10 people online.
We need to know where you're from. It's important. For some reason, it's really important.
Where are you from?
Where am I from? Well, I'm from down the road, down the other end of Roman Road. Yeah, that's where I'm from currently. Originally, I'm from Berkshire actually. Yeah, that's where I was born, but then travelled around quite a lot in different countries and so forth. So I can feel a bit of a nomad sometimes. I don't really necessarily feel I belong anywhere, which is maybe quite good for a Buddhist, lack of attachment or something like that. Who else? Is anyone else saying where they're from, Fajiro?
Not yet, but we've had 2 more people join.
Oh, well, that's very nice. So yeah, we're coming up to 7 o'clock actually, so we'll probably make a start and hopefully some other people will join us, and yeah, maybe they'll tell us where they're from, who knows. So yeah, welcome to the Tuesday evening class. And yeah, just a little bit of brief recap on what we've been doing over the past few weeks and how that fits in with Sthiramanas' talk and meditation this evening. So if you've been coming along on a Tuesday night for the past few weeks, or even if it's your first time on a Tuesday, that's absolutely fine. We've been looking at a kind of threefold path. It's a very traditional path within Buddhism of ethics, meditation and wisdom. So the idea is often people come to the Buddhist Centre. I know I certainly did for meditation. That was what kind of pulled me in the first place, like wanting to perhaps be a little bit calmer, a little bit of a nicer person. And quite quickly I realised that actually I need ethics. I need ethics behind my meditation, or it's not really going to get me very far. So there's that kind of very definite link between ethics and meditation. And if we kind of practice this life of ethics and meditation? Well, wisdom actually arises. It will arise inside. And that's what we've been exploring over the past few weeks. So in the first week, it was actually Sthiramanas who was talking around ethics. And then Yanadaya looked at meditation. And then over the last 3 weeks, we've been looking at different ways into insight, So taking things that we might traditionally see as being things that might make us unhappy. So we've been looking at impermanence, the fact that everything changes. Everything is constantly changing, and that includes ourselves. We've been looking at different forms of suffering. Yanadaya talked about that when he looked at dukkha. And last week I was talking about this idea of insubstantiality or non-self. Now those might be seen as causes for our suffering, for our unhappiness, but what we were talking about is how you look at them, the attitude that you bring to those three things can actually be doorways into liberation, into greater freedom. So that's what we've been looking at. And this evening has a kind of final session to looking at ethics and meditation and wisdom. Sthiramanas is going to be kind of almost a bit of kind of bringing all three together, and he's going to be talking about life as practice. So that's what's going to happen shortly, and I'm really looking forward to that. And then we'll have a little break, and we'll have meditation, and then there'll be questions at the end. So the kind of normal format of the evening. So what we're going to start with for now, though, is we're going to start with some... I thought maybe it might be nice to just start with some... Yes, if you can turn the lights down, that's great, thank you. To just start with some body meditation, some body awareness. I don't know about you, but Vajiro and I were comparing our days earlier on and recognising that we'd had quite kind of busy days, and it can start to feel you just go from one thing to another and can almost feel a bit resistant if you haven't actually settled down. And maybe you've had a similarly busy day and now you're sitting down and, you know, for the Tuesday evening class. So I thought I would just start with 10-15 minutes of body awareness. It's just a way of calming, relaxing the mind, relaxing the body, and preparing us in a way to be able to really hear what Sthiramanas has to say to us. So dim the lights in here, as you might have noticed. So just taking a couple of minutes to get yourself comfortable, just getting yourself comfortable, making sure you've got everything that you need for a period of meditation focused on the body. So whether you're sitting on cushions or a chair, or you might choose to lie down, just making sure you've got what you want and taking the time to kind of come into your posture, to come into the posture that feels comfortable for you, but also has a sense of dignity, and poise to it. I think particularly if we're doing body awareness at this time of the evening, it's quite easy to just fall asleep and nod off. Coming into your posture. I always find it helps myself if I just commit to it. I'm just going to be in that posture for the next 15 minutes. And then when you're ready, just closing your eyes. Let's just spend a few moments together, not really doing anything. How lovely not to be able to feel like we have to do something or go somewhere or even be someone. Just letting your day go, whatever it's contained. That's over now, that's past. We have this precious time together. So just bringing into your awareness the space around you. Just that sense of space. Maybe the sense of air. I can feel the kind of slightly cool air on my arms and on my bare feet. Opening up to the sounds around you. So maybe there's sounds in the very room you're in, or in the rest of the building, or outside in the street. Can we just be with those sounds? Don't have to go straining for them. We don't have to try and resist them. They're just part of our experience. Sounds that just arise and then pass away. So that sense of space and what's contained within the space. And gradually becoming aware of the connection that your body has with the ground beneath you. So that might be the soles of your feet, parts of your legs, might be your back if you're lying down, even the back of your head. But just opening up to that connection with the ground. And whether you're in a high-rise flat, or in a house, or even outside, there is a connection with the earth, and we can just open up to that. That sense of the earth holding us, supporting us. Just knowing that sometimes can help us let go of a little bit of tension, holding on in our body. So we have this connection with the ground, with the earth beneath us, a sense of space all around us. And even if we're in a building, got that sense that above the building is the sky, sense of space and openness. Just having that sense of space and openness can really help to calm the mind, our busy minds that are thinking our thoughts and ideas and plans. We can just let them arise and pass away. Just invite you to bring your awareness down through the body into the lower belly. So just opening up to all the physical sensations in the lower belly. What's happening there right now? Can you feel that kind of gentle expansion, contraction of the tummy as your body breathes in and out? It's a little bit like a wave, relaxing and calming. As we become more aware of that, we can extend our awareness to the sides of our lower belly. But also taking in the lower back, the buttocks, the sitting bones, the pelvic bone, just opening up to what's already there. We're not trying to create anything or force experience. This gentle sense of letting go. Maybe we have a sense of the weight of our body just sinking down through the cushion or chair, through the sitting bones if you're sitting up. Just stretching that awareness down into the hips, into the thighs. So we have an awareness of the surface of our body, so maybe the contact that your skin has with clothing or air, but also deep inside the muscles and the flesh and the bones. Extending your awareness down through to the knees. How are your knees feeling right at the moment? Not trying to grab hold of anything or push anything away that we don't want. Just a kind of kindly acceptance to whatever is there. Coming down into the lower legs, maybe in contact with the ground. Calf muscles, the shin bone. Coming into the feet. Soles of the feet. Maybe a sense of tingling of energy. The toes, the gaps between the toes. You can't feel much in your toes, you could always just give them a little wiggle so you know they're there. Through to the heels. So hopefully there's some sense there, some awareness of the feet. We're stretching back up through the legs again, to the sitting bones and the hips. The lower part of the body, the lower belly, and lower back. Maybe more of an awareness of the body breathing itself. Coming back up through the body, so expanding your awareness up into the mid-tummy and back and sides, the diaphragm. Awareness of the rib cage, back and front. The spine running the length of the back. The chest area and heart. Shoulder blades and shoulders underneath the arms. Just opening to it all. Extending that awareness down through the arms, to the elbows, down to the wrists, coming into the hands that are so alive with energy, full of sensation, the fingers and thumbs. And coming up to the neck, the throat, softening the throat. And finally coming into the head, the face, allowing the facial muscles to just relax and soften. Extending that to the rest of the head. So just spend a minute or so just sitting with awareness of the body at peace, body breathing itself. When you're ready, just opening your eyes, maybe coming out of your meditation posture, having a little bit of stretch. I'd like to really warm welcome to Sthiramanas, who's going to come and talk about life as practice. I'm really looking forward to it.
First, you get to watch the ritual
of the moving
changing
of the mats. Very important.
Can you tell me where to sit, Jaya?
Yes.
Is this about right?
Yeah.
Yeah? Great. So, yes, hello from me. My name is Sthiramanas, as Mahamani said. Yes, I was enjoying that meditation. I was enjoying the sort of shift in perspective that one get just from a little bit of just sitting and settling and letting the day kind of, I guess sort of zooming out on the day that I've had so far. I've had quite a busy day, and sort of coming in and I knew I had to do this, and I was busy up until dinner, and then I had dinner, and then I had to be down here, and it's interesting, isn't it, how much just sitting down and really just tuning in directly into your experience can sort of can put the whole thing into a different perspective. I sort of feel like a bit of a different person, just from a little bit of meditation. So yeah, these Tuesday evenings are meditation is our sort of focus. So we've been looking at the threefold way of ethics, meditation, and wisdom a little bit through this sort of lens of meditation. We've been doing a bit of we've been sort of focusing on meditation within the classes. We've been meditating and looking at sort of how ethical practice and wisdom reflections sort of fit in around that, sort of feeding in and being fed by the meditation practice. So as Mahamani said, we've taken a journey on these Tuesday nights, and if you're just joining for the first time tonight, don't worry. But for the last few weeks, we've been taking a sort of journey through this path of ethics, meditation, and wisdom. And we could think of the traditional term would be sila for ethics, samadhi for what we call meditation, and prajna for wisdom. So typically we've been seeing that as a single trajectory. It's like a one-way street, isn't it? So we practice ethics in that we live in a way that doesn't tie our mind up into knots, so that we create a positive basis from which to meditate. And you'll notice if you spend a day where you're really distracted, where you get into an argument with someone maybe, where you tell a lie, perhaps you you have a few drinks, or just sort of get intoxicated singing the same pop song in your head around and around, whatever it is, you'll notice that when you sit down and meditate, it's hard. Whereas especially if you've been on retreat and living more simply, or if you just sort of spend positive time with friends, you have a real conversation with someone, and you live in a way that conduces to meditation, it's much easier. So that's a simple journey. So we prepare for meditation by living as well as we can. And then meditation isn't the end point in itself. So we meditate by working directly on the mind with the mind, so as to sort of fill out that transformation that started with ethical practice, by sort of smoothing out all the grain of our mind, so that we've got a sort of like a clear surface with which to work, and then on that basis we can start to reflect on reality, on how things really are, so that we can free ourselves from that which limits us, and even ways of looking at life that are go very, very deep and are very normal in a way, but that sort of tie us into natural human suffering. So we're trying to undermine that whole basis. But I guess I want to, now that we've looked, since we've looked at that over the last few weeks, and we've looked particularly at some of the different practices or different ways of reflecting wisely, I'd like to sort of think about how that sort of continues, because I don't think it's just a one-way street. What sort of I found, certainly through sort of following that through, is when a bit of sort of prajna arises, when there's a sort of bigger perspective that comes through looking with wisdom, what it seems to do is open up more energy and capacity and desire to act ethically, which mostly means acting for the benefit of other people and with other people in mind, not sort of shutting them out through lies and secrets, not harming them, not taking from them, etc., but opens up a perspective on life which it makes ethical practice natural, and it creates a mind. It sort of again expands a mind that makes meditation more natural. So if you like, it's an ongoing spiral. It's not just ethics, meditation, wisdom. It's sort of ethics, meditation, wisdom, ethics, meditation, wisdom, ethics, meditation, onwards and onwards. But I think, I guess I've been thinking about living a life sort of based on these three practices rather than as a single road, more as like three aspects of living. So you could think of ethics as everything that you do with your body and everything you say, sort of your actions in the world. And you could think of meditation more in terms of the actions with the mind. So in terms of, especially when we're working directly with the mind when we sit down and close our eyes. Of course, we're doing that all the time, but sort of formal meditation is the time that we do that most sort of keenly. So everything that we do in our days and with our mind, ethics and meditation. But wisdom, we could think of the practice of wisdom would be trying to sort of rewire, if you like, or reshape the very framework, the very foundations for all of that, changing the whole game, if you like, and creating a different perspective on everything. I think that's particularly why I'm interested in practicing the Dharma and practicing Buddhism, because it just goes so much further than just living well and having good meditations, as brilliant as that can be. There's something sort of much more radical at play. So I saw a film called Baby Teeth in the cinema the other day, which I really, really recommend. And it's sort of going out of cinemas, so take your moment. It's an Australian film about a young girl with cancer, and I really loved it. I was very, very moved by it. And I've been thinking about wisdom in terms of living in a way that takes into account death. It's the great existential matter. We're alive and we go about our lives, but we know at some level that we're going to die at some point. We sort of do know that. I don't think there's anybody who'd be like, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to die, actually, thank you very much. But but actually, if we really ask ourselves, we're probably operating on that basis. Because what's so striking about this film is this. It's sort of a bit of a spoiler, but not too much. You sort of realise she's quite ill quite quickly. But as there's somebody dealing with the sort of looking death in the face, basically, it just changes life completely. There's a sense of connection between her and other people, a sort of almost magical interest in the world that seems to come into her life and into ours as well as we watch. And it reminds me also of I live upstairs in a community here at the London Buddhist Centre, and I live with a man called David Mitra, who many of you will have met. And he, soon after I moved into the community, he was diagnosed with serious prostate cancer, and went through chemotherapy and radiotherapy, and thankfully at the moment is sort of in the clear. But that was a long process, and he mentioned this morning, we were talking about the film, and he was saying that it reminded him of his experience with cancer, and I was reflecting back on that time as well, because it was quite a striking thing to live with him as he was going through all of that. I feel very grateful to, actually, because he's a man, he's been ordained for over 40 years, so he's been practicing Buddhism very fully for a long time. Fully in terms of he went on a 9-month solitary retreat by himself in a cabin, just sort of meditating and reflecting. So he's really been practicing Buddhism. And then he had this life-threatening illness. And to be around him in that time was really striking. He was the treatment especially, he was very ill and very frail. But he looks back on it and says he thinks it was the happiest he's ever been in his life, and I believe him. and it was like the fact that he was going to die was no longer just it was no longer an abstract. It was right there in his face, and you see that in this film as well. And it's like ideally we would be living like that, as if we were about to die any minute, all the time. And that would be another way of looking perhaps at a wisdom perspective. Living as if life was fleeting and fragile and somehow just magic because of that. And he's talked about sort of, in a way, wanting to be able to get that back when he sort of seemed to get healthier. The kind of urgency was lost, and with it some of that magic. And the effect of that magic will directly contribute to what we've talked about as ethics and meditation. If you know you're going to die, it seems, I'm not speaking from personal experience, well, I know I'm going to die, I think, but if you know that you're likely to die and soon, it seems that people's immediate response is to want to be with loved ones, is to want to fix relationships, is to want to sort of mend bridges, is to want to love people, basically. So hence ethics. Also, it just puts things in a much bigger perspective. If there aren't that many moments left, then worrying about status or getting distracted by nonsense or whatever just sort of fall away. Actually, it's worth saying all of this is based on one thing, and that is it's not a given that one would meet death with this level of positivity. I think it's noticeable with David Mitra how much his practice had informed that, and in the film it's noticeable that she's just a really positive young woman. And you sort of see that and learn to love her from her response to this. But it's certainly there as a possibility in looking at reality in the face, looking at death in the face. So in a way, that's the trajectory that we're trying to do without the actual sort of immediacy of the threat, if you like. We're trying to build up the positive basis through ethics and meditation so that we can consider the situation that we're really in. And with that, and if we're able to sort of really look at that and really see that as it is, it might unlock something of that desire for living well and a perspective, an expansion of mind that we're trying to do in the first place. So it will feed sort of back in, if that makes sense. Another way that I've that sort of caught my interest lately in terms of looking at things with a bigger perspective is thinking about space and planets. A friend of mine, Vijay, who I lived with here at the Buddhist Centre for a long time, he's recently moved out, and he was showing us lots of his art, and he's been really fascinated with sort of planets and the suns and so on. And it's sort of, I bought a painting of his. He's an artist, and it's got this kind of this what looks like a sun kind of crashing into Earth, and I think it's brilliant. It's so sort of energetic. Anyway, maybe something of that. It's got me interested in that, and I started watching some Brian Cox, who I've never really watched before, who I think is great, actually. And his sort of passion is very infectious. And something about the excitement of looking at the fact that the universe we live in is just so much bigger than us, like terrifyingly bigger than us. One thing that really struck me, he was saying that if you take all the, he was talking about the sun, And he was saying that if you take all the power that's used in the United States of America across a year, which is quite a lot, you can imagine, through cars and electrics and, industry and so on, in the whole of the USA for a year, times that by 1 million, and that's the amount of energy that the sun puts out every second. I thought, that's quite a lot of energy. That's a lot of energy that is there in the universe, even quite close to us in the universe. And so here, me in my life, sitting there on the meditation cushion, feeling like, I'm really tired. Like, actually, there's a perspective in which there's that amount of energy there, and an imaginative connection with that is only a step away. Also, you could think just in terms of just the expanse of just the space, just sort of watching. I remember when I was younger, sort of finding a thing online where you can sort of zoom in and out, and you can zoom all the way into like subatomic particles, and then all the way out to the sort of size of the known universe. And it's just completely shocking how fast you're sort of scrolling through things and how far out you can go. Anything that sort of articulates that sense of sort of scale and almost infinity, and the sort of vast times over which all of these planets have sort of come into being and fallen out of being, and even sort of whole sort of systems evolved and devolved, even maybe universes. So from that perspective, our life is sort of tiny, absolutely tiny. And you could look at that in the same way as you could reflect on death, and it'd be really, really depressing. A good friend of mine, I remember talking about the stars, and I always loved looking up at the night sky, and he got really into that when he was younger, and he said he got really depressed sort of following that. So there'd be ways of looking at these things that could take us in the wrong direction, if you like, if not based on the right kind of if not based on a sort of positive emotion and the right kind of a sense of wonder, which our practice of ethics and meditation will certainly be helping to foster. And so that could go wrong, but also it can make us seem small in a way that could just relax us somehow, in a way that could make everything not insignificant, but somehow heightened. It's just here for a moment. It's tiny. And yet it's full of emotion. It's full of experience. It's full of colour. So to bring these sort of two threads together, I was watching this film the other day. The reason I sort of mention it, I was watching the film and I was very, very moved by it. It's very sad, but it's something so sort of life-affirming and positive running through it. And sort of engaging with the kind of tragedy of it, I felt very, very moved, and I felt sort of even though I knew it was just a story, I knew they were actors, but you sort of really don't want what's happening to be happening. You really sort of fight against that. And the night before, I'd been watching Brian Cox, and in that moment of this strength of emotion, I sort of had an image of the kind of this universal, this sort of almost infinite space sort of come in. It's like these two interests that I've been talking about sort of overlapped in a moment. And the perspective on this very ill girl kind of zoomed right out. And rather than being like, she doesn't matter then, we're all just tiny, it was like the capacity for empathy was there and in full force, but married with a kind of sense of the scale in which it was all happening. And with that, it felt much easier to sort of relax around it. It wasn't any less feelingful, but it was somehow the feeling, rather than being sort of painful, was more poignant. There was more room for beauty. There was more room for love. So that's just one little sort of experience of a bit of a shift in perspective of the kind that I'm talking about. And I guess I just sort of want to leave that as a sort of personal story, or as a sort of flavour of how we might be bringing all of those aspects together in our lives. How practicing behaving, acting ethically, and meditating can be sort of underpinned and reinforced by trying to sort of shift our perspective onto the real key issues of life and allow that to sort of feed into it. Because, well, certainly my experience is that it sort of gives all the juice that's needed in order to really sustain a meditation practice, in order to keep behaving ethically. To keep doing that again and again, especially over years, takes real staying power. It's not always easy to keep coming to the meditation cushion. It's not always easy to keep sort of avoiding telling a little lie where it helps or whatever. So it needs a kind of it needs a bigger vision in which that all makes sense and picks up its own momentum. So yeah, let's take a little pause, and we'll take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back and I'll lead us in a Metabhavana meditation. So if you've not done that before, I'll say a little bit about it and lead us through it as we go. And yeah, so grab yourself a glass of water or what you need, or go to the toilet, and I'll see you back in 5. And you can hear me again? Yeah? Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yes, let's meditate. So, we'll be doing the Metabhavana meditation. So, I'll just lead us through it, basically. I'll sort of lead it lightly. I imagine some of you will have done it before. Basically, I guess what we're trying to do is this dynamic of, again, changing our perspective, but in this instance directly on other people and our relationship to other people. So I've talked about in the first half about how a vision of space or a vision of the inevitability of death might sort of change that perspective. But here we're just trying to look very directly at our relationship, firstly with our own experience, and then with a number of different people, and see if we can just sort of shift that relationship. And what a shift in that relationship will be like will be a kind of a sort of loosening. Will be experienced as a kind of loosening. So I certainly experienced the Metabhavana as a sort of compactedness around the area of my heart, and then we're trying to sort of just slowly give that a chance to loosen. So I'll say more as we're practicing. So beginning by just setting yourselves up comfortably as you did before. Noticing where you're holding any tension in the body. Perhaps you're holding a certain expression on your face. By drawing your awareness into that tension, just seeing if you can allow it to loosen of its own accord. Drawing your awareness into your shoulders. Sides of your neck down to the tips of your shoulders. Noticing any holding on and just seeing if you can let it go. Into your belly. Often we're sort of squeezing our belly in slightly, but you don't need to do that. Now drawing your awareness to the area around your heart, right in the middle of your chest. Just noticing what you can actually feel there. Whether that's pleasant or unpleasant. Or even if it's a bit numb and not very much at all. Just trying to experience what's there. And just noticing our relationship to our experience, to your experience of being you. Changing your perspective on that just by wishing yourself well. You may say to yourself some of these phrases. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. May I make progress. And just watching for a response. Invest far too much energy, far too much tightness into this relationship with ourselves. See if you can just let it relax. And now bringing to mind a friend. Someone you like, just the first person that comes to mind. And as you bear them in mind, just notice the response around your heart. You can help open out your perspective on them by dropping in some of the phrases. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you make progress. Just drop a phrase and wait and watch the response. What's it like to bring this friend to mind? And what's it like to wish them well? Now just bring to mind somebody who you don't feel very strongly for either way. It might be someone you see quite a lot even, but you just don't feel very much for them. Again, the first person that comes to mind will do. Again, notice your response. Noticing what it's actually like to bring them to mind. The actual experience, not the one you want. And wishing them well. If your mind goes off, just trying to find an interest in them, in their life. And now bringing to mind somebody who you don't like. Perhaps someone who just really irritates you. There's definitely somebody. And really bring them into your mind. And notice how you respond. And now see if you can turn that around, that energy of aversion, and really see if you can wish them well. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. May they make progress. There'll be some people for whom this person is their good friend. And if that isn't true, then this person is suffering. Now bringing to mind yourself, your good friend, the more neutral person, and the person you don't like. You could imagine sitting round in a circle with all of them. And see if you can wish all of them well. What's it like to wish your friend as well as yourself? To wish the neutral person as well as your good friend? Even the person you don't like as much as all. And now expanding your awareness to include more and more people. As people come into your mind, bringing them into this sphere of well-wishing. The people you've seen today, perhaps people you haven't seen in some time. People close to you in your local area. And people far away. And all the beings that aren't human, animals, birds, extending your well-wishing as far as it'll go throughout space. Now stopping any effort that you're making and just sitting with your experience right now. So when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So Jahit's going to kindly turn the lights back up, and I'm going to welcome back Mahamani. And this is an opportunity to ask any questions that you've got. So anything that arises, especially out of what I was talking about in the first half. Do write it in the chat box, and Mahamani's got her little screen, and she'll be looking at that, and we can have a bit of a discussion about some of the things that you'd like to hear us talk about. How's that, Jahit? How's our setup?
Good.
Looking good?
See me?
Yeah.
Okay. I might appear in a couple of minutes on my screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought before. Often takes a couple of minutes for people to think about questions. I just want to say first of all, thank you. I really enjoyed the talk and the meditation that followed. And I was thinking actually, it was very interesting when you said at the beginning, well, we all know we're going to die. And I thought, I'm not so convinced. I think I've spent a lot of my life actually not being convinced of that. So I'm convinced other people might, but not myself. And I think that's actually quite common. I think it's quite a common experience, isn't it? And even when we get glimpses of it, we deny it, we push it back. And I thought you really brought that out. And I was thinking in a way that what you were talking about was our life is preparation for our death. In a way, that is, if we could hold that in mind a little bit. And I was thinking about that in the meditation, of actually if I really could hold that, then all those petty irritations and resentments, whether it's my good friend or somebody I don't like, would just kind of disappear. And there's something about how can we bring that more into, I'm just wondering, how we bring that more into our lives. Because most of us, fortunately, haven't got a life-threatening illness that really brings that up. And I was just wondering how you bring that more to mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big question, really, isn't it? It's like, how do you... I guess, I mean, by practicing the Dharma, one of the key elements of that is trying to actively do that, and trying to, by practicing ethics, practicing meditation, listening to us, listening to reading, taking in sort of inspiration, it might sort of bring that more to the forefront of our mind. For me, actually, I mean, it was watching this film that sort of brought that a bit more keenly back into my mind, and then talking with my friend David Mitra this morning about this film, and then it was reminded me of his experience of that. So it sort of, and that came from a source of inspiration. It was just, I sort of engaged with something that really sort of caught my imagination, and that sort of brought it back a little bit more. I also think that I saw my parents at the weekend, and my parents are in good health, I think, generally, which is good. But I always have this feeling of just like, my dad's 76 now, and I love him dearly, and I can get, because he's my dad, I can sort of get a bit irritated with him or something, and I sometimes think like, I really wouldn't want to leave it, whether it's on a phone call or when I'd seen them or something, where I'd left it on a sour note, or I'd been a bit sort of short with him or something. It's like I just know that I would hate for that to be the last conversation that I'd had with him. And I mean, that's a bit more obvious because he's someone that's A, very close to me, and B, older. But if I was able to take that perspective to more and more of my interactions with people, basically it's treating our relationships like they matter, and they definitely matter when it could be the last.
Yes.
But likewise, a meal would matter if it was going to be your last. Everyone thinks about what their last meal would be on death row, kind of thing, and that would really matter then. A meditation would really matter if it was going to be the last time you ever got to meditate in your life. Sunset or whatever it is, like everything would just take on meaning, wouldn't it?
It would.
In the face of that.
It would. I think I'll read out a quote from Adrienne in a moment. Adrienne. But yeah, I was just kind of thinking as you were talking about, my father died nearly a year ago, and I was so very acutely aware of that in those last months of visiting him, and that sense of wanting things to be very clean and not to, if this was my last conversation, and at one point it was my last conversation with him, and just if we could bring that into all our interactions, that our life would be so very different. So there's a wonderful quote here from T.S. Eliot that I'll just read that out. "Go, go, go," said the bird. "Humankind cannot bear very much reality. Time past and time future, what might have been and what might have been and what has been, point to one end, which is always present." So I'll just share that with you, which is very beautiful.
I won't try and analyse T.S. Eliot.
No, I'm not going to at the moment, but I
lovely,
wanted to share it because it's a very, very beautiful. And I think the line "humankind cannot bear very much reality" is one that this person's kind of picked out.
It's sort of painfully true that
It's painfully true.
I've sort of noticed, like, sometimes I'll watch. I don't think this was the case with watching Baby Teeth, although sometimes I've found I'll watch a film that really moves me, or I'll have an evening with the guys in my community or something that just feels very rich and very full. And then I won't be able to sleep without just distracting myself from my computer, or it's almost like there's an impulse in me that's like, that was really, really full and meaningful. Let's kill that experience quick. So there's definitely a sort of counterforce, and I think that's natural.
That, isn't it?
And with more exposure to that kind of, the more we expose ourselves to meaning, the more, I guess, I think in experience that sort of we develop more muscle for it or something.
I think you're definitely right. I used to know somebody, and I can do it myself, but she would say that if she came back from, a group retreat, quite a deep meditation retreat, or even a solitary retreat, it was kind of like, okay, Netflix. And it was almost like, can't bear reality, need to kind of tune out now, and I can definitely see that in myself, like wanting that kind of, okay, that's enough of that now. So yes, I'm just trying to kind of be with that tendency, to kind of gently be it. There's a question from Marcia. Where does metta come from? The big one.
I don't have an easy answer to that. Where does metta come from? Well, it's interesting. There's certainly, I certainly don't have an answer as such, but it's an interesting question, isn't it? And you could, thinking particularly in terms of meditation, there's a sense of we're trying to sort of create something in the metta bhavana. We could approach it like we're putting in a certain amount of effort, and this is true actually. We put in a certain amount of effort, and we bring into being this experience that we call metta, a sense of connection with others and so on. So in a certain sense, maybe it's us, but I think probably more helpfully, certainly in my experience, is. And it feels somehow more true of the experience of the metta bhavana, is it feels like it comes more from the outside. Actually, if we follow this question through a sort of thorough philosophical analysis from a Buddhist perspective, the answer, it would fall, the difference between from me or from outside me would fall apart. So in a way we can't fall down on either side of the equation, but from me, in the experience, imaginatively, I find it more helpful to imagine it from something that sort of comes in. That feels perhaps, if I'm so small in relation to the potential of experience, the size of the universe and the potential of consciousness, and frankly, I think it's more likely to be outside of me than within me, to use that as a metaphor. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely can kind of understand that, and there's something then about just almost getting ourselves out of the way and just being receptive and just being open, isn't there? Sort of this. Sometimes there can be a bit of willing of something, which is really not at all helpful. Lovely question. Another question from Marcia. How do we consciously and continuously open up towards our own mortality and that of our loved ones? I'm just saying about your dad is an example in a way, the good conversation, there's something about that and opening up, but there's other ways as well, yeah.
I mean, we can reflect. We can reflect on death. The Buddha gave us these sort of key reflections for everyone. One of which is that we will die. So we can sort of bear that in mind. It's worth bearing in mind with that it wants a sort of strong basis so that we can hold that well, so that A, it can sort of sink in a way that will actually go somewhere, and B, so that it's not going to depress us, basically. And I'd say that the metta bhavana is the main thing that you can do. So in a sense, the metta bhavana for laying the ground, and just reflecting on death. If you reflect on death and things changing and coming to an end, you'll see it everywhere. So in a way, that's all you need, the metta bhavana and keeping your eye out for it.
Yeah, and I definitely kind of, lots and lots of positive emotion, to kind of look at, to look at our own mortality and the mortality of others. But there is that sense of awareness. Particularly, it doesn't feel like we're moving into autumn today. I recognise that, but we are. And actually just walking through the park and seeing the trees, the leaves on the ground and, having a bunch of flowers and just seeing the fact that over a week they change. They change, and that's, that's what we talk about, impermanence, isn't it? and this, everything is changing. And I think just opening up to that can be, and there's something very beautiful about that, which I think you've been emphasising in all evening, the kind of beauty.
It's interesting, that, isn't it? Because you'd think that everything, that things dying around you would be, you'd think that it's like, oh, we need positive emotion just to cope with that or something. But actually, in a sense, I've not had very much death. I've not had very much experience of death in my life. My parents are both alive and well, and so on. But I wonder, like with you mentioned your dad died a year ago. Did it feel like you just needed positive emotion to cope with, or did you feel that there was something else that came out the other side of that?
Something I found actually very, very beautiful. There was obviously deep sadness there, the loss of my father. I'm not going to say that. But there was something about the beauty of his letting go. And I think it was surrounded with a lot of very positive emotion. I actually wasn't with my father the moment he died, but my brother texted me as soon as it had happened. He was in a nursing home by that time. And I remember just sitting at my shrine, getting up in the middle of the night, sitting at my shrine, and just, I kind of felt like I was holding his breath. I can't explain it any other way, but it just felt like I was so acutely aware of my breath. And just so acutely aware of him, and it just felt very beautiful and magical. And there was a sense of a letting go of, yes, this is what happens. This is what happens. And I think it was almost like all the teaching had come to that point and actually had prepared me really well. So there wasn't a kind of rallying against it.
That's a good note to finish on.
It is a good note to finish, and we are coming up to 2029 anyway. So next week the Tuesday team isn't kind of here as the Tuesday team, because you might be aware that there's a course running which starts on Monday, doesn't it?
Starts on Monday and runs until Sunday, so the full 7 days of next week.
So it's around this theme of transformation, and really drawing on the kind of Tantra teachings, which are all about kind of direct change now, very kind of powerful. And that's being led by Mancha Bandhu and Surya Gupta, Savannah Jyoti and Akasha Mitra, I think, isn't it? I was just looking for clarification there and getting it. And that will lead up to one of our festival days on the 27th of September, Padmasambhava Day, who's the archetypal guru of transformation. And that's a very special day, and then in the evening there'd be Mitra ceremonies, but there'd be more about that, information sent out about that next week. So that's what's happening next week, so do tune in for that. Do you need to register for that course?
So you need to register online. It's free to register, and then you'll be sent daily emails with all the links you need to join in, and also some sort of really short, sort of snappy videos with like a sort of challenge for each day. In a sort of the Tantra is very much about looking death in the face, so in a way it's very it's sort of a very good continuation from what we've been talking about tonight. And those daily emails will be giving you something to sort of do to really actually try and play that out in your life as well. Probably just leaves me to say thank you for a really stimulating evening, and preparation for next week, I think, and hope to see you all soon. So bye bye from me, and bye from me.